Commissioner Palomero,
Here.
Commissioner Baker McCormick, Commissioner Kinlock,
Present.
Commissioner Clemente, Commissioner Baydoun has requested an excuse. Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Chair Hattis.
Okay. Next item, the chair remark, I think for the sake of the time, because it's a very large agenda. So we move to the next item, please.
C, approve the April 16, 2024 meeting minutes.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carry. Next item,
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
okay, next item, please. Have none.
Item 1, under new business, forwarding notification that the Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee held a public hearing on April 18, 2024 to consider the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district.
Okay, any question or discussion on this item?
Move approval.
Motion been made and
We receive and file.
motion been made and supported to receive and file. All those who agree, we could vote on the tablet. All those who agree signify by saying aye. Okay.
Motion carried.
Next item,
Item 2, requesting commission approval of a comparable source professional services agreement with Detroit Historical Society for the Wayne County History Exhibition Series Program.
okay, we have the,
Good morning. Good morning. Hassan Sheikh, Director of Economic Development here.
Good morning, Lucius Anthony, Assistant Director of Economic Vitality.
We also have representatives of the Detroit Historical Society on Zoom as well. So this specific project, we're requesting the consideration and approval of professional services with the Detroit Historical Society to put together the Wayne County History Exhibition Series program. One Wayne County, we talk about that a lot. This is a project that really will encompass that. The Detroit Historical Society will be reaching out to all the communities, getting the unique history from each community, and providing us with a showcase here at the Guardian Building that really talks about the true history of all 43 communities here that we have in our county. This is going to be a contract to not exceed the amount of $575,000 effective upon the commission approval, and will go through December 31 of 2026. The purpose of this effort is to highlight historical assets and the people of this county, but also to ensure each community's historical role in the county that is shared as well. A lot of times we talk about, some of our big communities, we talk about Detroit, but we have so many beautiful communities. We have Grosse Ile, we have Detroit, we have Westland, we have all the downriver communities, the Western Wayne communities, the outer communities. We want to make sure that each community's history is part of the blanket that is Wayne County, and it is highlighted. And that is what we're going to be working on here. Each community has played a crucial role in the culture of Wayne County, in the history of Wayne County, and we want to make sure that is highlighted. With that, are there any questions, concerns?
Commissioner Kinlock.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a project that's long overdue. It is something that brings together all of the information that I've been able to learn, whether it's the Burton Historical Library, and it's just so much history around our county. And this is, like I said, it's an effort that is long overdue. And the story that makes up all 43 communities need to be located and archived and at a location where all citizens will have access to. So I think this is excellent. I appreciate it when it came before the Economic Development Corporation Board as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. And, just speaking a little bit more to what Commissioner Kinlock spoke about, we see especially in the summer times, but even in the winter times, when you're on the main mezzanine area, you see a lot of tourism. You see a lot of tourists come into the Guardian Building. And for us to be able to tell a story for them when they come in, to take beautiful pictures of our building, but then also learn about the history of Wayne County, is going to be an excellent experience for those that are travelers coming into the building, as well as residents that just want to learn more about their own history.
Commissioner Palamara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hassan, in theory, this concept is wonderful. When I read about the details of how it's being planned, it's less than wonderful, in my view. It steps outside the core concept of what county government should be doing with its resources. When I read it's potential and likely that there's going to be alcoholic beverages served at cocktail receptions, giveaways, to me, we've got two important issues on the ballot in August that I don't want to see somebody needlessly use this type of thing of squandering of money to defeat a millage renewal or to undermine the Auditor General request that we badly need to get that situation resolved. I would like to support it. I think you're all very aware that I'm pretty supportive of what comes this way. And I'm not blindsiding anybody. I had this discussion this morning with Assad already, so he knows how I feel about this. So I'm not there yet. If you guys want to tweak some aspects of how you plan to do this, I'll be open-minded to it. But at this point, I cannot support what this is doing.
Mr. Chair, please,
Commissioner
that alcohol part, you need to clarify that you can't use government money for the alcohol portion.
Yeah.
I think you was talking about probably the marketing and advertising, which seems to have confused the issue. So none of that, that's probably some external things that they're
Felicia,
doing.
could you address that, please?
Through the chair to this honorable body. So the original version that was submitted to the commission indicated that there would be a bar at the opening event. And so we inquired, what's a bar? Does it include alcohol? We were told yes. We had some other significant concerns with the original agreement, which they adjusted and revised. The second agreement that's submitted indicated beverages. So we inquired, does beverages include alcohol? We were told yes. They will likely be providing alcoholic beverages at these events. So no, I was very clear to make sure we got an understanding of what the intent was.
But what I'm saying is that the dollars, people have utilized public establishments all the time and serve alcohol there. I don't think that the alcohol should have actually been mentioned.
So,
No,
And-
but it's in the
and-
budget.
Hold on.
It's in the
Seth.
budget. Yes, they have a line item for catering, beverages. That's why we asked the questions. So. Absolutely.
I appreciate the feedback there, commissioners. Tracy, you're on the line. If we can just clarify to make sure that no government dollars are going to be being used on the alcohol specifically. Are you on the Zoom, please?
I am, yes. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So when we originally put the budget together, we put everything that could possibly be needed in order to make, a big sort of inaugural kickoff. For the smaller events, the community events that would happen with a rotating exhibition, there would be no alcohol. We did include it, yes, in the first big kickoff exhibit opening to sort of launch the whole program, but that can easily be removed. We don't need to serve alcohol. It was just if this was, required as part of the overall project. So, and we also, in terms of the dollars, we have a facility rental budget that we would be pulling money from. So the primary budget goes toward the exhibitions, the database, the outreach going to the communities, and then the parties kind of come from their own separate, but it was listed, as was noted in the overall budget. So if that needs to be removed, we can easily do that.
I would recommend that would be removed before the full board meeting.
Sure.
Because I think all the commissioners agree with Commissioner Palamara at this point.
Absolutely. And we would be happy to, if there are additional concerns with the kickoff event or the community events, we sort of noted them as open houses. if there's concerns about how we might want to structure those, we'd be happy to talk that through or remove them if that was needed. We just thought it would be wonderful to have the communities come in to be able to see the exhibits before they open to the public.
Absolutely, and I think that having those events is great, but I don't think necessarily that the alcohol is a requirement for those. And I do appreciate you all with being flexible enough to take that out. I think the commissioners are on the same page. So what I would propose is if we could approve this contingent upon removal of the alcohol from the budget items before it gets to full commission, we could move that way if that's okay with the commissioners and the chair, through the chair.
I think would be that should be acceptable by all the commissioner.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well, we're here to discuss it because if it's what. Oh, Commissioner Anderson.
Light on. Anyway, I do have some of the same concerns, and I also have a concern of whether or not this is precedent setting for this type of an arrangement. My impression of the Detroit Historical Society and the museum is nothing but great. I mean, it's but I wonder if it's not getting into an area that we shouldn't be getting into, spending county dollars for that. I also wonder if we don't have from what I saw the documentation, we don't know who the subcontractors are. And I would turn to our counsel and ask if that was something that she had also noticed. And are we not required to have that information, who the subcontractors would be?
Through the chair, so the procurement ordinance requires that the administration identify all of the subcontractors for every contract. So that is a requirement of the procurement ordinance. We have had a few in recent months where they didn't and they were supposed to come back, like Simca, but I don't think even with Simca that we've received that information. We have? Okay, we have. So it's a requirement of the ordinance to do so. In this case, it has not been provided, but they did indicate if you're willing to move forward with it, that they will provide that information in the future.
Like I said, in a greater 10,000-foot view, I just wonder how many people are going to look at it and say, is this how they're spending our money? And do we really need to renew any, as Commissioner Palomero said, is it not going to jeopardize something like that? That's all I have. And right now, I'm not a yes. I'm a no right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Kinlock.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend, move this to full commission without recommendation.
If I can just say something, please, Mr. Chair. I also have concerns. Reading this, the Detroit Historical Museum is a wonderful place. I used to take my students there to visit. I'm not, and my communities all have historical museums in the community, and we don't really get a huge draw out of my community to even go to those historical museums. And I'm just wondering why we picked here to do it. And then what is the private parties described in the analysis? If you could just, and why we're picking the Guardian Building over having something at the Detroit Historical Museum, because I understand the one county, we all want to be, but it seems there's a lot of money being spent on this that could go to our communities. And I have a little concern.
I appreciate the feedback, Commissioner. I think that when we picked the Guardian Building, it was due to the fact that this is the county building, and we have a lot of foot traffic that comes in and out of the building, especially when it comes to tourism. So to have a display that talks about the full history of the county here would serve as a purpose in terms of educating folks that come in here about the history of all 43 of our communities. When it comes to the details on the events, I'll pass it over to Tracy to talk about that.
So sort of to answer both questions, the private parties, they're not really private. We chose that over VIP. It's really the communities. So these initial receptions would be for the communities initially, so that they would get sort of a sneak peek of the exhibitions before we open them to the public. So that's what that indicates. In terms of why we selected the Guardian Building over the Detroit Historical Museum is sort of to your point. You know, we have a broad range of visitors that come to the Detroit Historical Museum, go to the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, see the great history of our region. But we're not going to capture everybody because not everyone's going to go to a history museum. So the Guardian Building, it's in the middle of the city. It's in the heart of the city. There's a lot of foot traffic, as was mentioned. And we try really hard to get the city's collection out into the community. We do a lot of traveling exhibits. We work with institutions. We loan artifacts all the time. So this would be an extension of that program and would be able to really showcase the Guardian Building as, you know, it's a major center within the city. And honestly, we thought that a lot of the communities, you know, thinking about, you know, Westland or communities downriver, they may have not ever even set foot in the Guardian Building, and it's an impressive space. So a reason to get people into the building would be great, and then they would get excited about their history, other communities' history, and then maybe ultimately it'd lead them to come back to the museum, maybe buy a membership. But you know, I think it's really getting the community excited.
I hear what you're saying. I like to come to Detroit and do things. There's not a lot of people in my community that come this way. So maybe as we're thinking through this more, you know, transportation comes to mind of how this might happen, because I know like the DIA does have bus. So those are my
Right.
thoughts. I do have a lot of things, and
Commissioner McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there, I guess, a breakdown in how we came up with the $575,000 for this? I'm just wondering where that number came from and how we got to that.
Tracy, do you want to talk about the $575,000 from where that number came from your guys then, in terms of a contract not to exceed that amount?
Sure. It's a breakdown for the 2.5-year project. We're working with Wayne State to bring in a fellow that will serve as the point person for the project. So some of that is to cover the cost of the person who will be serving as point for this. The cost of the physical fabrication of the exhibitions, the outreach, you know, which also includes travel, getting the bus out there to get, or the van, I should say, to pick up artifacts, the events that would then be part of this, the marketing, the outreach, the video that would be created as part of the kiosk, the software development for the kiosk, as well as the physical production of the hardware.
Okay.
So I know that's a very broad sort of in broad strokes, but it's kind of top down. The biggest cost is the staff person that would then be brought on to manage the project, working with my team, the exhibition team, and then kind of everything that falls under that, the physical development of the exhibit, the research, the travel, the outreach going to the communities, the hardware that would then also go back to the communities after the exhibition is completed. The communities would then get their exhibit that they could then display in their city halls or their local libraries. And then, of course, all of the elements that go into the online database that is developed. There's going to be a physical kiosk that will be at the Guardian Building, but then it will also live online. So the online hosting, and then on from there.
Okay. And I'm sorry, can you give your title for the record?
My title, sorry. My name's Tracy Irwin. I'm the Chief Exhibitions and Enrichment Officer for the Detroit Historical Society.
Okay. And as far as the communities we talked about being a part of this, have we talked to them to see if they're interested in as far as artifacts, and what are they willing to give us those items for this project?
As part of this project, we've not begun reaching out to them. We do work with the local communities pretty regularly on a lot of other projects. We're doing programs, as I mentioned, we have traveling exhibits that go into the local communities. So most of the historical societies in Wayne County, we have regular contact with. And we loan and borrow things all the time. So we don't have a concern that they wouldn't be interested, but we have not reached out to them formally as part of this program yet.
Okay, because I would be interested in knowing how many communities are really interested in providing resources, artifacts. And then you just talked about loaning the items. So the items would be, I'm just trying to
We
see how that
loan-
works. You
Sure,
would bring them
we-
in and they would be here for how long? And then they would, how does that work?
Well, we typically loan artifacts from the city's collection out as part of, as part of our stewardship of them, to get them into the community. Some of those artifacts will be used, so there's no concern with those. When we work with the different communities, we would then borrow artifacts that that they would deem significant, help tell their story in a physical way. And then when the process for that is, it's actually pretty simple. We have a loan agreement that it's a formal document that they sign, we sign, they have a copy, we have a copy. We borrow the artifact, we put it on display, we note how long the duration of the display will run, and then we acknowledge who that artifact came from in the label that's on display, and then in any marketing that would go out about that as well. And then at the end of the exhibition, we then return the artifact to the person, they sign off on having received it. And that's sort of that full circle. But we do
Okay.
that a lot with with museum exhibits as well. We borrow artifacts from local historical societies, often things that we don't have in our collection currently.
So the last question, so how long is the exhibit? So is this, how long is it?
The exhibits run for 3 months. So they
Okay.
rotate every 3 months for 2.5 years so that we can get every single community recognized.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
3.5 years or 2.5 years?
2.5. Yep.
Any other question? Commissioner Palamera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Commissioner McCormick maybe makes the most salient point of the day in terms of what is the interest of the local communities to share that information? Are they going to participate in this? And if we can find that out, and if the answer is yes, in large part, and it gives me a whole other comfort level with moving forward with spending $575,000 rather than, to me, we're getting the cart before the horse here.
May I just interject real quick? From my experience, I've been with the museum for 22 years and I've been doing exhibits for a long time. We work with the local communities all the time. They are very interested. They come to us all the time asking for help in developing their exhibitions, wanting to get their stories beyond their communities, which is part of the reason that this project sort of came to light. We're like, well, why don't we do this on a much larger scale? And the Wayne County Executive was very in favor of doing the project. When we met with him initially, I think that I think that there would be no reason that they wouldn't want to, just in my experience. We have a community gallery at the Detroit Historical Museum. We rotate that exhibit every 3 months, and we are booked out for years. People wanting to have their stories told in the space, which is, part of the reason why this sort of 3 months rotation came about. But we can start reaching out to those communities if you'd like. But in order sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Palamera, so from now between full board, what we can do is make sure we're reaching out to each community. And at the full board, if this was to go there, we can present to you all which communities are in, which ones are not in. That way you guys have that information. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, move to send this to full board without recommendation. Report.
Not a lot of vocal support.
Yeah, they got questions to
Hold
answer.
on one second.
Is,
Council-
just for clarification, because we've discussed amendments, is that contingent upon further discussion and amendment of the agreement?
Absolutely. I thought that would be understood. So what's to happen between now and full board? Reach out to the communities. You're to report back to us the number of communities who have interest. You're also to clean up some of the details and concerns and questions that have come from the commissioners, and to answer any questions, any and all questions that may come from our fiscal office as well as our council. So all of that is contingent upon having all that information back, by full board.
That makes sense. So your motion still the same then. We need support to move it that way. Okay, motion been made and supported. Any other discussion? All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Please vote on your tablets.
Oh.
Any oppose?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Okay, one abstain, one no, and 4 yes. Motion carry. Thank you.
Please clean us up.
We're on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next item,
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. You have any email or anyone on phone?
For public comments, no emails were received.
Okay, anybody from the public like to make a comment? Anybody from the public twice? 3 times? Thank you. Next item,
Adjournment.
take your time to make the motion.